My daughter Luna and her deadbeat mother Nancy tried to ruin my life and label me as a horrible father in front of my entire family. It all started when Nancy and I first met at a college party back when we were both students. She was a year older than me, and what started as a brief connection at that party turned into a one-night stand. At the time, neither of us thought much of it, but that single night unexpectedly led to Nancy becoming pregnant. When Nancy found out, she wasn't sure she wanted to keep the baby. I told her that I would support whatever decision she made because ultimately it was her choice. However, Nancy's parents were deeply religious and tried to persuade her against terminating the pregnancy. After much deliberation, Nancy decided to keep the baby, but she was very clear with everyone that she didn't want to raise a child. She planned to explore adoption options once the baby was born. For me, hearing that plan didn't sit well. The thought of my child being given to strangers and growing up without me was something I couldn't accept. I spoke to my parents about the situation, and they were incredibly supportive. Together, we came up with a plan. I went back to Nancy and proposed a solution. Once the baby was born, she could sign over custody to me. I assured her that she wouldn't ever have to take on any responsibility, and I would take full care of the baby. Nancy agreed, and that's exactly how things unfolded. When my daughter Luna was born, it was a life-changing moment. The first time I held her in my arms, I was overwhelmed by all the love I felt for her. Luna was tiny and perfect, and in that instant, I knew my life would never be the same. My dad told me that becoming a father was one of the hardest but most meaningful journeys a person could take. He said everything would fall into place once I held my child, and he was absolutely right. Holding Luna gave me a sense of purpose I had never experienced before. It made me feel like I could take on anything in the world for her. After Luna was born, Nancy went through with signing over full parental custody to me, even though her parents strongly opposed it. She was firm in her decision, and once everything was finalized, she returned to college life as if nothing had changed. She focused on her studies and social life, leaving the responsibilities of raising Luna entirely in my hands, just like I had wanted. Now, I won't sugarcoat it. Being a single father was far from easy. At the time, I was still in college, trying to juggle my classes, work, and taking care of Luna. If it hadn't been for my parents, I don't know how I would have managed. They were an incredible support system, stepping up to help me every step of the way. Together, the three of us made sure Luna was surrounded by love and care. While I went to my classes, my mom would watch Luna. When I came back, I would spend as much time as I could with her before heading off to work. While I was at work, my parents would step in again to care for her. Even with their help, I felt a deep sense of responsibility to provide for Luna myself. I didn't want to rely on my parents to cover her expenses, so I worked as much as I could during college so I could contribute financially. It wasn't all easy balancing everything, and there were days when I was completely exhausted. But Luna was my priority. The love I had for her made it all worth it. Meanwhile, Nancy, who was a year older than me, graduated from college before I did and immediately moved to a different city with her boyfriend at the time. She never asked about Luna or showed any interest in her, and honestly, I was fine with that. By then, I had come to terms with the fact that Nancy wasn't part of Luna's life. I saw myself as Luna's only parent, and my focus was on giving my daughter the best life I could. When I eventually graduated and secured a full-time job as an analyst, I finally had the means to move Luna and myself into our very own apartment. It was a proud moment for me. Being able to stand on my own feet and provide a home for my daughter. My parents loved Luna dearly and would have gladly continued helping, but I wanted to give them a well-deserved break after all they had done for us. Raising Luna on my own came with its challenges. There were sleepless nights, endless errands, and the constant balancing act of work and parenting. But over time, I established routines and found a rhythm that worked for us. It wasn't perfect, and there were tough days, but I learned to manage. With practice and a lot of love, I made it work. Every step of the way, Luna was my motivation to keep going, and seeing her smile made all the struggles worthwhile. As Luna grew older, she naturally became curious about her mother. She would occasionally ask me questions, and I made the decision to always be honest with her. I explained that her mother had chosen a different path in life, one that didn't include raising a child, but reassured her that it was okay because we had each other. I didn't want to lie or create some elaborate story that might give her false hopes. I believed it was better for her to know the truth, even if it wasn't the easiest thing to hear. For years, this approach seemed to work well. By the time Luna turned 15, everything in our lives had settled into a happy rhythm. She was thriving in school, had a great group of close friends, and we had built a life together that felt complete. Our little family worked, and we were content. But everything changed when Luna turned 16. Out of the blue, Nancy, who had been completely absent from our lives since signing over custody, reached out to me via Facebook. She said she had been thinking about Luna a lot and wanted to meet her. Her message caught me off guard. The idea of Nancy suddenly wanting to re-enter our lives didn't sit well with me at all. It wasn't just about the fact that she had chosen to give up her parental rights years ago. There were deeper concerns about who Nancy was as a person. Even back in college, she had always been problematic, hanging out with the wrong crowd, making questionable choices. I knew for a fact that she had a history of drug use with her string of boyfriends, and I couldn't imagine someone like that being a positive influence on Luna. More importantly, we didn't need Nancy in our lives at all. Luna and I had built something strong and stable together, and Nancy's sudden interest felt more like an intrusion than an opportunity. I replied to her message, keeping my responses firm but polite. I told her that Luna was doing just fine without her, and that if she wanted to meet Luna, she would have to wait until Luna turned 18. At that point, I explained, it would be Luna's decision whether or not she wanted to meet her biological mother. Nancy read my message but didn't reply. For a while, I thought she had let the matter go, and I hoped that would be the end of it. I wanted to protect Luna from any unnecessary intrusion, especially when we had worked so hard to create a happy and stable life together. However, I eventually discovered that Nancy had reached out to Luna behind my back. Apparently, Nancy manipulated the situation by telling Luna that I didn't want her to know her biological mother and that it was because of me that Luna didn't have a mom. Unfortunately, Luna didn't tell me about these conversations at the time, and Nancy's influence began to show in her behavior towards me. Over the following days and weeks, I noticed a dramatic shift in Luna's demeanor. She started acting distant, rude, and unusually irritable around me. This was completely unlike her. Luna had always been sweet, kind, and considerate. At first, I chalked it up to typical teenage mood swings. But as time passed, I realized it was something deeper. Luna seemed to be shutting me out entirely, deliberately avoiding spending time with me and even going out of her way to avoid any conversations with me. It hurt to see my daughter withdraw like this, especially when we had always been so close. Then came a particularly alarming incident. One evening, Luna didn't come home at her usual time after school. I waited for almost 2 hours, growing increasingly worried. Normally, if Luna was staying late at a friend's house or doing something after school, she would always text to let me know. It was a habit we had developed over the years to make sure I didn't disturb her or worry unnecessarily about her whereabouts. But this time, there was no message, no update, nothing. Concerned, I texted her multiple times to ask if she was okay. I hoped she'd simply forgotten to message me back, but deep down, something didn't feel right. Luna eventually came home that evening, much later than usual. The moment I saw her, I could tell something was wrong. She looked visibly upset, her shoulders slouched, her face heavy with sadness. Concerned, I asked her if everything was okay. That's when she suddenly broke down in tears. Through her sobs, she told me she had met her birth mother and learned what I had supposedly been hiding from her for years. I was taken aback and asked her what she meant. That's when Luna revealed that Nancy had reached out to her on Facebook a few weeks ago. She confessed that they had been talking ever since, and that Nancy had been saying things about me that were making her question everything. Luna admitted that these conversations were upsetting her and making her see me in a different light. My daughter explained that Nancy had even convinced her to keep these communications a secret, so she hadn't told me anything. That evening, they had finally met in person, and Nancy had filled her head with even more troubling claims. According to Luna, Nancy told her that I had forced her to give up custody, painting me as the villain who had knowingly kept her away from her birth mother. Nancy also told her that it was entirely my fault Luna didn't have a mother in her life and that it was selfish of me to raise her without Nancy being involved. Hearing this broke my heart. I could see how conflicted Luna was, torn between what she'd always believed and the lies Nancy was now feeding her. As much as I wanted to react with frustration, I knew I needed to stay calm. I took a deep breath and explained to Luna once again that Nancy was not telling her the truth. I reminded her of everything I had already shared with her, the real reasons Nancy had chosen not to be involved and the decisions we had made to ensure Luna had a stable, loving home. I reassured her that my parents, who loved her like their own child, would never lie to her about something so important. I emphasized that if Nancy had truly wanted to be a part of her life, we would have welcomed that. But Nancy had made her choice all those years ago. I hoped that by staying calm and reiterating the truth, Luna would begin to see through the lies Nancy was feeding her. But I could tell that the damage had been done. Luna refused to listen to anything I had to say and yelled at me for keeping her away from her mother. That night, I was so furious with Nancy's interference that I took her phone, found Nancy's number, and called her to confirm her directly. I demanded to know why she was manipulating my daughter and feeding her such blatant lies. Instead of backing down, Nancy doubled down on her claims. She told me that she was too young back in college to really understand what was happening when she gave up custody. But now that she was older and mature, she had every right to be a part of Luna's life. She made it clear that I could no longer keep her daughter away from her. As a result, despite my protests and attempts to set boundaries, Nancy continued to meet with Luna regularly. This made me extremely uncomfortable, but I felt powerless to stop it. I tried everything I could to help Luna see the truth, but it seemed like she was determined to believe her mother over me. Over time, Nancy began to act like she was fully entitled to the role of Luna's mother. She wanted to know more and more about her life, inserting herself deeper into her world. As the weeks went by, Luna's behavior only worsened. It was like I didn't even recognize her anymore. The sweet, thoughtful daughter I had raised was slipping away, and in her place was someone who seemed increasingly rebellious and distant. One day she came home with Nancy, and I was utterly shocked to see she had gotten a face tattoo. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. To be clear, I have no problem with tattoos in general, but a face tattoo at 16? It was an impulsive decision that I would have strongly advised against had I known about it beforehand. When I asked Luna how this had happened, she casually told me she'd been thinking about getting a tattoo for a while. Nancy had encouraged her, gone with her to the tattoo parlor, and helped her decide on getting it done on her face. I was livid. Who in their right mind allows, or worse, encourages, a 16-year-old to get a tattoo on their face? I couldn't hide my anger, and I admit I raised my voice. I told her how irresponsible and thoughtless the decision was, not just because of her age, but because of the permanence of such a visible tattoo. But Luna didn't care. She dismissed my concerns as if they were unreasonable. Nancy also chimed in and accused me of being controlling and said that when she was 16, she had done worse things than getting a tattoo, so I shouldn't make such a big deal about this. I felt completely undermined as a parent. Not only was Nancy interfering in how I raised my daughter, but now she was actively encouraging reckless decisions without even consulting me. I turned to Nancy, furious, and told her she should be ashamed of herself. I reminded her that Luna was still a child and needed a responsible guidance, not someone who would encourage her to make impulsive, bad decisions. But Nancy refused to back down. She argued that she had done nothing wrong by supporting Luna and insisted that our daughter could do whatever she wanted with her life. After that argument, things only got worse. Luna became bolder and more defiant every day. She started pushing every boundary she could. She got piercings without my permission, then she dyed her hair bright, unnatural colors, and soon after, she began wearing extremely inappropriate clothing to school, clothes that were not only against the dress code, but also drew negative attention. On top of that, she started hanging out with the wrong crowd at school, kids who regularly missed out on classes and had a reputation for trouble. Her grades began to suffer badly. Luna, who had always been a bright and capable student, was now failing one of her classes. I felt like I was watching my daughter spiral. I didn't know how to stop it. I tried everything I could think of. I sat her down for countless heart-to-heart conversations, trying to understand what was going on in her mind and why she was acting out. I encouraged her to talk to a school counselor, hoping that someone else might be able to reach her in a way I couldn't. I even asked my parents to try speaking with her, thinking that she might open up to them if she felt like I was too overbearing. But nothing worked. Luna wasn't ready to listen to me or anyone else. All the while, Nancy kept fanning the flames, encouraging Luna's defiance and undermining every effort I made to help her. I felt like I was losing my daughter, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't reach her. This year, when Luna turned 17, I organized her birthday party, as I always did. It was a tradition I cherished, a way to celebrate her and bring the family together. However, this year's celebration turned into a painful and embarrassing event that left me at a loss. Luna had insisted that Nancy be invited. As she wanted her birth mother to attend, despite my reservations, I agreed, wanting to avoid further conflict and hoping to keep the peace for the sake of the occasion. What I wasn't prepared for was Luna's shocking choice of appearance and behavior during the party. She walked into the gathering wearing a sheer fishnet dress with a neon bikini underneath. She had cut off her long hair and now had a pixie haircut. On top of this, She had a brand new thigh tattoo, one that was large, elaborate, and prominently visible through her fishnet outfit. The entire ensemble, combined with her piercings and face tattoo, was jarring to everyone present. Understandably, many of my relatives were taken aback. To give some context, most of them hadn't seen Luna in quite some time, so her dramatic transformation was unsettling. It wasn't just her physical appearance. It was the outfit she'd chosen for the occasion. The fishnet dress was far too revealing for a family gathering, and it left little to the imagination. Some of my relatives, especially the older ones, were visibly horrified. And to make matters worse, Luna didn't seem to care about the discomfort she was causing. She strutted around confidently, ignoring the whispers and side glances. I wanted to talk to my daughter, but this was her birthday. I didn't want to spoil her mood, so I let it go. Throughout the party, Nancy kept trying to push Luna to have a glass of wine, which irritated me beyond measure. When I noticed this, I calmly but firmly told Nancy to stop encouraging our underage child to drink. Instead of backing off, Nancy fired back, yelling that she was also a parent, that she knew what she was doing, and that I needed to butt out of her parenting decisions. Luna, siding with Nancy, told me to chill and casually revealed that she had already consumed alcohol before. Shocked, I immediately asked Luna when this had happened. And that's when she told me, as nonchalantly as possible, that Nancy had taken her to a bar before, during one of their outings, and that she had gotten really drunk after her fourth or fifth glass of whiskey. I couldn't believe what I was hearing from my daughter's mouth. My blood boiled, and all my attempts to stay composed flew out the window. I lost it and confronted Nancy in front of everyone at the party. I yelled that she had no right to explore my underage daughter to such reckless behavior. I yelled that she had no right to expose my underage daughter to such a reckless behavior, and that she was setting an incredibly dangerous example. In my anger, I told Nancy that what she was doing was illegal, and I could call CPS or the police on her and have her arrested for endangering a minor. To my dismay, Luna jumped to Nancy's defense, insisting that I shouldn't blame her mother because it had been her idea in the first place. She said she had asked Nancy to take her to the bar because she wanted to experience drinking, and argued that Nancy had merely obliged. Nancy defended herself by accusing me of overreacting and being too possessive about Luna. Her words stung, especially when she told me that if I continued acting this way, Luna would eventually cut ties with me because, according to her, no one likes an overbearing parent. I stood my ground and told Nancy that protecting Luna from underage drinking wasn't being overprotective. It was literally my duty as a parent and aligned with the law. Before I could say more, though, Luna exploded in anger. She loudly declared that she was sick and tired of me always treating her like a child. She threatened that she wouldn't let me throw her mother under the bus, and that if I went through with reporting her mother to CPS, she would testify against me. She even went as far as to say that she would make up false stories that I was abusing her just to get me in trouble. I was stunned. My mouth fell open, and for a moment, I couldn't comprehend what she was saying. My own daughter, my Luna, was threatening to ruin me. The daughter I had raised with every ounce of love and dedication I had to offer, the one I had sacrificed so much for, was now standing there, threatening to lie and destroy my reputation. Luna went on, her voice dripping with defiance, claiming this was exactly why she loved being with Nancy more than me. According to her, Nancy was a fun parent, allowed her to do whatever she wanted, and didn't try to control her life like I supposedly did. Luna called me a horrible father for always standing in the way of her happiness, and that she wished she could live with Nancy instead of me. Those words cut through me like a knife. I stood there in the middle of the party, surrounded by family, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My parents and relatives tried to come to my defense, but no matter what they said, Luna had no remorse on her face. After this incident, I honestly felt like something inside me broke. Luna's public embarrassment of me, calling me a horrible father and threatening to lie about me, shattered the bond we had. The worst part was that she never once apologized for what she did. Eventually, I realized that if she didn't want to live with me anymore, then perhaps it was time to give her the space she seemed to so desperately crave. I called for a meeting with both Luna and Nancy after her birthday party and told them that Luna had my permission to move out and live with Nancy just like she wanted. I explained to them that until Luna turned 18, I would continue to support her financially by sending money for her expenditures every month. But beyond that, I would no longer be part of their lives the way I had been. They both seemed taken aback, but in the end, they seemed happy with my decision. So Luna moved out and began living with Nancy. Over time, she would occasionally call me, but I always kept our conversations short. I was still hurt, and every time we spoke, it was a reminder of what we had lost. Then today, out of nowhere, I received a message from Luna saying that she regrets moving in with her mother. I was stunned. I immediately asked her to clarify what she meant, but she didn't give me much to go on. Now I'm torn. I want to understand what's going on in her mind. Maybe Luna has finally started to realize the consequences of her choices. But at the same time, I don't want to push her away again. I don't want to be the reason she turns against me even more. So Reddit, AITA, for having allowed my daughter to move in with her deadbeat mother. Update 1. I understand that many people think I should have never let Luna move out no matter what happened. But please try to understand that being a single parent isn't easy, especially when you feel you're constantly being undermined and manipulated. Nancy is a liar and a manipulator. She brainwashed my daughter and turned her against me. Also, the truth is, the more you push a teenager, the more they will rebel. If I hadn't let Luna move in with Nancy, she would have found other ways to express her frustrations with me, and I wasn't ready for that kind of conflict. In my heart, I think I just wanted Luna to see the truth for herself. I didn't want to be the one constantly telling her what was wrong and right. I wanted her to come to that realization all on her own. I wanted her to see Nancy the way I see her, and understand exactly why I tried so hard to protect her from her birth mother. Update 2. Today, Luna showed up at my place. She didn't look like herself. Her face was pale. She seemed upset. I immediately let her inside and gave her a glass of water to calm her down. After she took a moment to settle, she told me something I wasn't expecting. She couldn't live with her mother anymore and wanted to move back in with me. I could see how distressed she was, so I asked her to tell me exactly what had been happening. That's when Luna opened up and shared everything. Turns out that after she moved in with Nancy, she started seeing her true colors. Living with her every day was completely different from the few hours she had spent with her mother in the past. Nancy would drink all day, and by the time she hit her 6th or 7th glass of whiskey, she'd become a mean drunk. Luna felt like she always had to take care of her mother, cooking, cleaning, and doing everything around the house. At first, Luna thought it was just something she could do to help, but over time, it became a daily burden. Nancy would get angry and demand that Luna do things for her, and it started feeling like more of a chore than something she was willing to do. To make matters worse, Nancy was using the money I sent for Luna's expenses on herself. She'd buy herself clothes, makeup, and other things while refusing to give Luna any money when she needed it. Nancy also never encouraged Luna to focus on schoolwork or finish assignments. Luna was terrified she was going to fail high school, but Nancy never showed any concern or support. Nancy also brought home a different man every night, and Luna started feeling unsafe. She didn't feel comfortable or secure in their home anymore, and it all started to feel too overwhelming for her. I asked Luna why she hadn't told me all of this sooner, and if I had known, maybe I could have helped her earlier. She looked down for a moment, clearly upset with herself, and then told me that she knew how much her words had hurt me during that incident at her birthday party, and she didn't want to admit that she had been wrong. Luna said she was foolish for believing Nancy and for turning her back on me all those months ago. She apologized sincerely and begged me to let her move back in with me. Hearing her apologize and admit her mistakes was a relief. I could see how much she regretted her decisions. I gave her a hug and reasoned her that this was her home. If she didn't feel comfortable living with Nancy, she could always come back to live with me. I told her I'd talk to Nancy and try to smooth things out. Luna seemed so relieved to hear that, and for the first time in a long while, I saw a sense of peace in her eyes. After she left, I reached out to Nancy. I'm planning to meet with her in a few days to talk things through. I'm not sure what will come of the conversation, but I want to protect my daughter, and now, more than ever, I need to make sure she's in a safe, healthy environment. Update 3. It's been a while since I last updated anything, as I've been too busy with everything. Luna has moved back in with me. And while I'm relieved to have her here, the situation with Nancy was far from easy. Nancy fought tooth and nail to keep Luna from coming back to live with me. She accused me of somehow poisoning Luna against her, trying to make it sound like I was the one manipulating the situation, but I made it clear to Nancy that this was Luna's decision, not mine. Luna herself repeated the reasons she shared with me about how uncomfortable she felt living with Nancy. Nancy tried to threaten Luna, saying that if she moved out, she would stop talking to her forever. It was heartbreaking to see Nancy use that kind of ultimatum. But I stood up for Luna and told Nancy that she was just a child. She had every right to change her mind without being threatened. I made it clear that Luna's well-being and happiness came first, and she wasn't going to be bullied into staying somewhere where she didn't feel safe or cared for. In the end, Nancy left, and since then, she hasn't been in contact with Luna at all. I'm not sure what will happen moving forward with their relationship. Luna does seem regretful about everything that's happened, and I can see how much she's been reflecting on her choices. She's promised me that she'll try to do better, and I believe her. I've also convinced her to start seeing a therapist, and she's agreed, which is a big step. I think talking to someone will help her process everything she's been through. I'm also going to reach out to her teacher to see how we can address her grades and get her back on track. I know it's going to take time, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to support her. I'm just grateful to have my daughter back home, finally. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.